Welcome to the Skeptic Zone, the podcast from Australia for science and reason.
Yes, it's the Skeptic Zone podcast, episode number 462 for the 27th of August, 2017. Richard Saunders here with you from a very sunny Sydney, Australia. But not too hot. Winter's still here. Not for long. I've noticed things are blooming. The weather's getting warmer. But for the moment, it's very nice. Coming up on this week's show, apart from the weather report, a grain of salt. With Eran Segev, Eran is gallivanting, globe-trotting. He was recently in North America, where the lucky dog witnessed the total solar eclipse. More about the eclipse in a moment, folks. More about that in a moment. And he caught up with a dear old friend of the Skeptic Zone, Dr Pamela Gay, the famous astronomer. Now, Pamela is the director of the Technology and Citizen Science at the Astronomical Society of the Pacific. That's quite a title. And Eran chats to Pamela about her work there and the outreach they do, including mapping planets. Following that, it's the Raw Skeptic Report with Heidi Robertson. Exciting news for the Northern Rivers Vaccination Supporters Group, as they have been nominated for the North Coast Primary Health Network's 2017 Community Choice Excellent Award. Heidi will tell us about this nomination and how you can vote for their organisation in that award. Links on the show notes. And it's so nice to see that a group like that is getting even more recognition. Then coming up after that, it's Brew Ha Ha Science from Australian Science TV with Shuj Esufali talking about algae. What do you want to know about algae and how important it is? And they think at the Australia Science TV, they think it should be nominated for Australian of the Year. That's an interesting one. Then we bring you what's turning out to be a major story here in Australia about a Melbourne GP who has been investigated after he outed himself on a video at a screening of the movie VaXXed, where he almost boasted about helping parents dodge vaccination for their children. And as I say later on in the report, this VaXXed movie, it's just the cloud with many silver linings. There are many good things coming out about this awful movie being shown around Australia, including the outing of anti-vaccination doctors by themselves. By themselves. And what's the expression? They only open their mouth to change feet? Oh boy. A very interesting and revealing story, and a continuing story about anti-vaccination GPs. Then to round off the show, Maynard's spooky action, more from the recent Sydney Science Festival. And once again, Maynard runs around a scientific institution interviewing all sorts of scientists. This time it's at the Australian Museum, where Maynard and I were all of last week performing for the Science Festival as part of the school's events, performing our Mystery Investigator show, and there's some clips, some highlights from the Mystery Investigator show a bit later on. But before that, Maynard speaks to people from the Australian Mathematical Science Institute, Dr Anne Musser from Jenolan Caves, which is a wonderful cave system west of Sydney. Then it's Thomas Jeffries from the Joint Academic Microbiology Seminars, known as JAMS. And then Olga from the Wildlife Sydney Zoo at Darling Harbour, and she and her colleagues brought along lots of stick insects. That was a lot of fun. Now, just getting back to the solar eclipse, if you remember last week on the show we chatted to Evan Bernstein from the Skeptic's Guide to the Universe, who was very excited about going to see the solar eclipse. He did. I'm delighted to report he made it, and the skies were clear for Evan and his friends and family who were there. And here's a short clip that he made during the solar eclipse.
Okay, we are about 4 minutes from totality, and the skies have gotten darker, and everybody is on pins and needles, waiting for the actual moment. So, stay tuned. Okay, 2 minutes out, 2 minutes to go. I'm going to let this thing run. And hopefully we'll see the shadow wash over us from this direction. We're facing west. We're in. Take a look.
Oh. Wow.
We are in totality, folks. Look, Jupiter above us.
Wow.
Just amazing. Indescribable.
Congratulations, Evan. I'm so thrilled and delighted for you and your friends and family and all the people who saw the solar eclipse, and I'm jealous. I'm very jealous. But now it's time for me to run downstairs, open up a box of imported Indian curry. Yes, imported. They come in these little boxes. They're very cheap. And you take them out of the box, and they're in a sort of a foil pouch, and you undo that, pour the contents into a bowl, heat up some rice, and mix it all together, and it makes an excellent lunch or dinner. Imported Indian curry. And then you can add some spices if you wish, or yogurt or things like that. Maybe make some papadums in the microwave. Sounds good to me. While I'm enjoying all that, I hope you enjoy the Skeptic Zone.
Grain of salt, grain of salt, grain of salt.
Let's all take this with a grain of salt. Here's Eran Segev.
Grain of salt now. Grain of salt, you gotta take it with a...
I'm at the Moonrise Hotel. We're actually sitting at a gym because that's the place. That's where it's quiet.
It's true. We are stepping away from all of the revelry and all of the celebration after a day of watching the moon get in the way of our view of the sun.
And the voice that you're hearing, and most of you probably recognize, is of Pamela Gay. Hi, Pamela.
Hi, how are you doing?
Oh, much better. Although you can probably tell by my voice that I've gone through something. But we've just had an eclipse weekend and then some. It was wonderful by all accounts. You tell us about your experience with the eclipse. What happened to you?
So this entire adventure started on Friday morning when we all began to converge on this beautiful moon Apollo-themed hotel in St. Louis, Missouri, in the middle of the United States. A group of us went on an amazingly, sometimes harrowing bike ride in which I got lost and we went down a highway at one point, because this is what I do. We had 2 days of science and arts and science-related music, and then this morning, before the sun was fully up, we boarded cars, we boarded buses, and we drove about 160 kilometers to Carbondale, Illinois, which is near the point of maximum totality here in the United States. We had roughly 2 minutes and 40 seconds of totality, during which I experienced 2 minutes and 40 seconds of a little tiny, very annoying cloud being directly between me and Jim Cantori of the Weather Channel, as people all around us were able to see a few seconds here, a few minutes there.
Well, we were in two buses, and the bus I was on was the other bus that went into an area just outside Carbondale. And we saw the whole thing.
I know. It's the running joke all weekend has been I was going to abandon the entire team because my 2 prior attempts to see a solar eclipse included getting rained upon. And when we all went to the Yucatan Peninsula the day the Mayan calendar ended, we actually did almost die on a Mexican ferry. I know that somebody has to be that tail end of the Gaussian distribution of fates. And it seems to be my destiny, or at least my statistically improbable reality, to always be that tail end of the Gaussian distribution. So I joked all weekend I was going to abandon all of you, go hang out with the Weather Channel, and there'd be a little tiny cloud over only my head, and you'd all have a fabulous experience.
And it sort of happened.
It totally happened. There was this little tiny peninsula of cloud that, like, only affected me and Jim Cantori and our camera crew. Yeah.
You'll have to continue trying. It's worth it.
I'm going to, and I'm going to make sure that I always stay far away from people I care about.
Yeah. So let's move on from the eclipse. Can you tell me a little bit about what you do now? I mean, listeners to Astronomy Cast will know that your title has changed.
It has.
You're no longer at the University of Southern Illinois at Edwardsville, is that correct?
It's true. So back in January, I was hired by the Astronomical Society of the Pacific. And you may be thinking, wait, she lives in Illinois, doesn't she? And that sure doesn't touch an ocean. No, it touches the Mississippi River. But it's an international organization. And just as Australia is a Pacific nation, the United States is a Pacific nation, and this international organization, well, Illinois is still part of the U.S., and so now I'm the Director of Technology and Citizen Science at the Astronomical Society of the Pacific, and I'm working to take this more than 100-year-old organization that was founded right after an eclipse from people that were taking some of the first scientific data ever of an eclipse and helping them move from the photographic era into the digital era.
That's fantastic. But you still also are the director of CosmoQuest.
I'm still the director of CosmoQuest, technically principal investigator is the phrase that NASA uses on our paperwork. I'm the person that herds the paperwork to make sure the citizen science gets done.
Yeah, well, that has been something that you've been focused on for many years now. I mean, you've visited Australia several times, and some of the reasons that you visited were to raise funds for CosmoQuest. Isn't that the case?
So we launched back in January of 2012, and at that point in time, we were funded off of 2 separate NASA grants. We had a series of different mission contracts. We had some corporate sponsors. But over the years, the amount of funding available for people to do the kind of science and science education that I work on has fluctuated. We went through a period called sequestration where they radically changed everyone's budgets. And it was the donations of people like those out in our audience, and it was because of the help of people like you and Richard that we were able to reach out and say, can you help us bridge from today to tomorrow? And that tomorrow came, and today we're once again a NASA-funded project. I'm not speaking for NASA right now. Right now I'm speaking as regular human being working for the Astronomical Society of the Pacific. But we were able to carry on and get to this today where we're working to generate new citizen science projects, and hopefully we're going to be launching a brand new project in the not too distant future to get help labeling astronaut photos. This is the next big thing we're going to be looking to do, because there's a whole lot of science in these pictures that are of forest fires, of flooding, of farmers' fields in all their different states and shapes across the world.
Sorry, so these are photos taken by astronauts from space?
Yes. So the astronauts in the International Space Station have taken more than 1.5 million photos. And we know where the space station was when they took the photos, and we know what camera and lens they were using. But these photos aren't labeled. So to make them usable for science, we need to get the help of anyone out there who just wants to explore our world from an eagle-eyed view if that eagle was flying 300 miles up with a zoom lens.
Yeah, that's amazing. So when is this launching?
We're still waiting for final approval to come from NASA headquarters. Again, I'm not speaking for NASA today, just to make that clear.
Sure.
We're still waiting for word from NASA headquarters, and now that the eclipse is behind us, we're hoping to be able to turn this around fairly quickly and get all of our software certified, because well, this is the kind of launch that we want it to be just as nominal as any spacecraft launch.
Is it going to be similar to things like Galaxy Zoo, where you basically have the photos online and people are expected to provide the information online, and then you kind of average out the results or see if everybody says the same thing?
That's exactly what we're doing. So it's going to be a multi-step process where we start out by asking, is this a picture of outer space or looking down at the surface of the planet? And depending on how you answer, it then asks, so do you see things like farms and oceans and coastlines, or do you see the moon and stars? And we're going to work on narrowing it down. And for those photos that are looking straight down at the Earth or maybe at a slightly oblique angle, we're going to ask people to try and center the photos up on Google Maps so that we can get the actual latitude and longitude of what it is that people are able to see in these images. And they can really be used for science that way.
That's fantastic. What projects do you have ongoing?
So currently we have Mercury mappers, Mars mappers, which is about to get new data in the coming months. We have Moon mappers. We are working to finish off Vesta so that we can bring Ceres on. And we have great new things planned for the future, including we're going to be working with the OSIRIS-REx team to look at the asteroid Bennu. So it's new things on a regular basis. Just keep helping us do science because there's more data than people, so we need all the people.
Yeah, that's very exciting. So this, you organized this eclipse escape that was through Astronomycast.
Yes.
Is there anything else that you're planning through Astronomycast?
So right now we're looking ahead and trying to figure out what it is we want to do next. And what I'm hoping to do is in 2019, because 2018 we have an International Astronomical Union meeting, and that might eat a little bit of my summer, by which I mean at least 2 weeks. So we're looking ahead to 2019 so that we can wrap this up and plan well for the future and go sit around a campfire on top of a supervolcano in Yellowstone and look at the stars and roast marshmallows.
Sounds great.
That's kind of what I'm thinking feels right to do next.
Okay, very good. I hope I'll be able to join you then.
I hope so too.
Okay.
It's really been a pleasure.
Okay, thanks very much, Pamela.
Thank you.
Grain of salt now. Grain of salt, you gotta take it with a...
Hi, this is Ben Radford.
And this is Pasquale Romero from the Squaring the Strange podcast.
Every week, my co-host and I cast a skeptical eye at a different topic.
Monsters, ghosts, demons, mysteries, and even current events are dissected and discussed with a fun, unscripted, and skeptical take that you're sure to enjoy.
Find us at squaringthestrange.com, iTunes, or on your favorite podcast platform.
It's the Raw Skeptic Report with Heidi Robertson.
Hello everyone. As part of the Northern Rivers Vaccination Supporters Group, I can say that we are pretty chuffed that our group has recently been nominated for an Excellence Award from the North Coast Primary Healthcare Network. We have now heard that we are one of 4 finalists for the Community Choice Award. The public can look at the 4 videos, each 2 minutes in duration, and decide which organisation or group will get their vote. We will put the link to the videos in this week's show notes at skepticzone.tv, as well as on the Skeptic Zone Facebook page. As Skeptic Zone listeners, it would be great to have your support should you think we might be deserving of the award. It is allowed for the public to vote every day, once a day, if they like. Here is the audio of the short video we made for the public to vote on.
We were introduced by social media as all concerned people within our community, really worried about news that had come out that our vaccination rates were so low. We got together and we thought we needed to do something about it. We all live in this region, so we know what the cultural narrative is. We know how much misinformation there is, and we know how scared people are of vaccines. We also know that parents just want to make the safest decisions for their kids.
Fears become so much bigger when you don't talk about them or if you don't have anybody to speak to about them. When you're fearful of immunisations, you think that the worst case scenario is every case. So you think that the worst thing that could possibly happen is going to happen to your child who you love and you want to protect. And it's not reality, but it becomes reality in your mind because that's what you fear the most.
What we did is that we've developed some tools, we've developed some resources, we've written a website, we've developed all sorts of memes and infographics that have provided our members with the tools to then go on and have peer-to-peer conversations. Our concept we call 1,000 cups of tea because literally it takes sitting around a table having 1,000 cups of tea, listening to people's concerns and addressing each one at a time.
It often takes time to explain things in a way that someone understands or in a culturally safe way. Helping people find good sources of information has been a really important part.
People are listening to what we say, and even if they're not changing their minds straight away, it does at least open the dialogue and get people interested and get people talking.
I can kind of sympathise with people who are hesitant, but I can also let them know that the other side of the fence is extremely scary. 2 of my children have had whooping cough. You know, my daughter's left with a lifelong lung disease from whooping cough. Not getting the vaccines is so much worse than any reaction that can happen if a reaction is to happen with the vaccines.
We remain a grassroots, unfunded group of local volunteers. We have no affiliations or sponsors, and our only formal collaboration is as part of the vaccine safety net, meaning that our website has been ratified by the World Health Organization as an up-to-date and reliable source of information for vaccines and vaccine-preventable disease. I'll keep you updated on how we went in the voting. The winner will be announced in September.
And now, direct from the cafe at Australia's Science Channel, it's Brew Ha Ha. Science in less time than it takes to order a coffee. With Shuj Esufali.
Sorry, Serena Williams, Kanye, and Elon Musk. There's a new contender for greatest of all time. Algae. Algae is responsible for all life on the planet. Yep, what kind of just looks like sludge is the reason we're here. This morning, Australian scientists released a study showing that about 650 million years ago, there was an algae explosion, both in the number of different types and the sheer amount of it. Out of this explosion, more complex life began forming, leading to everything we see around us today. The evidence they found suggests this happened in Central Australia. Algae is Australian. It's alright, world. You can thank us later. Along with giving us life, algae could also be the thing that saves us. Around the world, scientists are using it to produce new clean fuels and create new food source. It might even help clean the air. So today, we're launching a new campaign. Algae for 2018 Australian of the Year. Forget your retired sports stars. For an Australian that has contributed more to our way of life, algae really is the greatest of all time. It's time it gets the recognition it deserves.
For more Brew Ha Ha and Australian science, visit www.australiascience.tv or visit Australia's Science Channel on Facebook. It's hard to know where to begin this story. Over the last few weeks, of course, probably over the last month or so, we've been talking about the anti-vaccination movie VaXXed that toured Australia, and subsequently, of course, Polly Tommy, one of the producers, was denied re-entry to Australia for at least 3 years when she left for New Zealand. You can, of course, catch up on those reports over the last few weeks of the Skeptic Zone. Well, it seems VaXXed is the gift that just keeps on giving. During one of the screenings of VaXXed in Melbourne, during the Q&A, and on the stage taking questions was Polly Tommy and Merrill Dorey, the former president of the Australian Vaccination Skeptics Network. One of the people lined up to ask questions or give statements was a Melbourne doctor by the name of Dr. John Piesse, Piesse, who happily told the crowd of his efforts to keep people from being immunised, keep children from being immunised. And we take up the story reported on The Guardian, theguardian.com, an article published on the 24th of August by Melissa Davey, which says in part, "Doctor investigated over helping vaccinated children to avoid the no jab, no play laws. A Melbourne doctor who promotes, quote, natural healing, end quote, and helps parents to avoid compulsory vaccination for their children is reportedly being investigated by Australia's health watchdog. The Australian Health Practitioner Regulation Agency, AHPRA, is reportedly investigating Dr. John Piesse, who boasted at a meeting of anti-vaccinators that he can help parents jump through the hoops and get their children exempt from Victoria's, quote, no jab, no pay, end quote, legislation. Piesse's medical registration with AHPRA shows he has previously been ordered to undertake further education. On Thursday, Victoria's Acting Health Minister John Foley told Radio 3AW in Melbourne that it was, quote, not good enough, end quote. Piesse was still being investigated after concerns about his anti-vaccination comments were raised in August 2016. Quote, by failing to vaccinate their children, parents are putting their kids and others in our community at risk of terrible diseases or death, end quote, Foley said. In a video from an anti-vaccination event held in August this year, published by the Herald Sun, Piesse explains how he tries to beat compulsory vaccination. Quote, I'm a doctor who has been working hard for 18 months to try and help parents get exemption from vaccinated pain for vaccinated play, with mixed success. You need a doctor's letter of contraindication in the right form, provided the doctor has the qualifications required for no vax, no pay, or is a registered medical practitioner for no vax, no play, end quote, he said. The Health Department told The Guardian Australia it has referred one anti-vaccination doctor to AHPRA, but could not reveal further details due to confidentiality laws. Here are some clips gathered from the media, and this story has made just about every TV news here in Australia, and I've noticed internationally too it's been reported quite widely. But here are some clips of the relevant people speaking about this recent event.
Good evening. A rebel anti-vax doctor has spoken out after being exposed as one of a group of Melbourne GPs under investigation. It comes after a video was made public in which it was claimed doctors have helped hundreds of families avoid vaccines. Annie Kearney has the story.
A doctor in the spotlight and under investigation. Are you worried about the investigation?
Well, of course, I'm not very comfortable with having my life taken over by it. But you see, I am quite convinced that there are many, many children being damaged in our society by unsafe vaccines.
Melbourne doctor John Piesse faces accusations he's helping families dodge compulsory vaccinations. It's believed another 2 GPs are also being investigated by authorities.
One at Nathan Templeton has more. Nathan, a number of GPs are under investigation.
Good morning, Larry and Kylie. Yes, this explosive video that's just emerged was taken earlier this month. Now, there was a screening of the controversial documentary VaXXed, and this footage shows the Q&A that was held afterwards, and in it, 2 GPs, Dr. John Piesse and Dr. Nerida James, can be heard telling the crowd how over the past 18 months or so, they have helped up to 600 families avoid having their children vaccinated. Dr. Piesse also goes into great detail about how doctors can find loopholes so that anti-vax families can get exemptions from those compulsory immunisations. He also speaks out against the no jab, no play regulations. Now, there has been an investigation underway for some time. At least 3 GPs are being looked into, but now that this video has come out and it's made front page news, you would expect that investigation to really ramp up now. Larry and Kylie.
A Melbourne GP who claims to have helped hundreds of parents dodge vaccinations for their children has spoken out, arguing he's done nothing illegal. But doctors have slammed John Peace, saying he's spreading dangerous misinformation. Dougal Beattie with the story.
A qualified general practitioner turned advocate for the rogue anti-vaccination movement.
I am quite convinced that there are many, many children being damaged in our society by unsafe vaccines.
Dr John Peace, along with naturopath colleague Nerida James, were filmed earlier this month claiming to help Melbourne parents avoid immunisations for their children.
We can support you, and we have been supporting about 600 families thanks to Dr John Peace.
But the doctor who's being investigated says he's done nothing wrong.
So it's totally legal. But they don't like it because they don't want anyone to be allowed not to vaccinate without penalty.
His group accused of spreading dangerous propaganda.
If you have a child that's been, brain damaged by vaccines, do you want to vaccinate that child further? Of course not.
The government says the medical research is clear.
Vaccination saves lives.
Other doctors have hit out, calling for him to be barred from practice.
I think it's extraordinary that he can hold his medical registration in the same organisation that I do.
Surgeon John Cunningham says concerned parents are being misled.
They've been given the fear campaign and they're being sucked up into the cult think of the anti-vaxxers.
It's also been revealed at least 2 other Melbourne...
unapologetic about supporting an anti-vaccination stance, but authorities say he and the others have to be held to account.
Dr John Peace is accused of assisting families opposed to compulsory child vaccinations.
I've been approached by hundreds of parents who want to get exemption from the penalties for not vaccinating.
He's one of 3 Melbourne doctors at the centre of an investigation by the Victorian Health Department and the Australian Health Practitioner Regulation Agency.
I've been going according to the law. The letters that I write, according to the requirements of the legislation, they are totally legal.
I am astonished that there are any people who have been through medical degrees who would deign to stoop to the level of supporting the anti-vaccination movement.
The film VaXXed has been causing controversy by linking the measles, mumps, rubella vaccine to autism, which has been medically discredited.
It is so important that everyone in the...
And those clips, thanks to the 10 network, the 7 network, the 9 network, and the ABC here in Australia. Now, what I find interesting about this whole story is that during the VaXXed screening and afterwards during the Q&A, people felt emboldened, one might say. They felt the ability to be able to vent to like-minded people. But of course it was all videoed, and this video ended up online, and so they're really damning themselves now with their out of their own mouths. So yes, there is a silver lining to this awful movie VaXXed being shown up and down the country. These anti-vaccination doctors are simply outing themselves. Since recording that story a couple of days ago, there have been further updates, and again we look to the Guardian, theguardian.com, with an update to this story published on Saturday the 26th of August. Melbourne GP accused of helping parents avoid vaccinations, reprimanded 13 years ago. Medical Practitioners Board of Victoria ordered Dr John Peace be counselled in 2004 for failing to, quote, make appropriate investigations of patients' symptoms, end quote. A Melbourne doctor under investigation for helping parents evade compulsory vaccinations was reprimanded a decade ago for failing to properly treat patients with potentially life-threatening illnesses like cancer and depression. The story goes on. By Friday, the Medical Board of Australia told Peace that it intended to revoke his medical registration. Peace, a supporter of alternative medicine, has a right of reply before that occurs, including an opportunity to outline why his licence should not be revoked. The time period usually allowed for a reply is 1 week. But a report uncovered by Guardian Australia shows that concerns about Peace were raised as far back as 2001, when Medicare Australia reported him because he charged Medicare for long and prolonged consultations and because he made an abnormally high number of pathology requests during the year 2000. He rendered 2,137 services for 707 patients at a total Medicare benefit of $87,570 that year. In July 2003, a professional review committee investigating the allegations found that Peace's conduct during 2000, quote, caused a significant threat to the life or health of his patients. It was concerned that Dr. Peace failed to make appropriate investigations of patients' symptoms of possibly serious conditions such as cancer, meningitis, depression, and anemia, end quote, a report from the Professional Services Review scheme said. This information was referred to the Medical Practitioners Board of Victoria, which in August 2004 ordered that Peace be reprimanded, counselled, repay medical benefits totalling $18,179 and be disqualified for 18 months from providing certain GP services to patients. And the story goes on with more details, and I'll certainly link to this in the show notes. And very much related to this story was the activities of Polly Tommy here in Australia, who we have had mentioned before, has been banned from coming back to Australia for 3 years. And in an online rant, video online rant published at We Are VaXXed Facebook page, Polly Tommy briefly mentions this situation.
I look at Australia and it's laughable what is happening over there. They're taking that poor doctor. They're trying to take that poor doctor down.
Now that's not surprising, I guess, but what's also interesting about this online rant, which goes for about 5 or 6 or 7 minutes or so, is that it really does show that these people are so wrapped up in their world of conspiracy theories. Have a listen to this short excerpt.
So far, we are so far up here, and you guys are so far down here. And I get you're panicking. I get that you're sending out every troll that you can. I'm seeing people coming out of the woodwork now that were there 20 years ago and they've vanished, and now they're all back out again. So you clearly have had some kind of emergency alert email. Get back out, get into the game. We're losing, they're winning. We have to stop it now, or no one's getting a bonus. No holiday for you next year, no Christmas bonus.
So here she's implying that there's some sort of overarching central control, sending out emails to doctors and trolls, apparently. And then she implies, of course, that if the doctors aren't vaccinating or towing the pharmaceutical big pharma line or something like this, then they're not going to get money in the form of bonuses or their holidays or something like this. It's this Illuminati conspiracy theory, evil big pharma controlling everything frame of mind that dictates so much of their actions. And finally, if there was any doubt, which there shouldn't be by now, that these people are vehemently anti-vaccination and not pro-choice, as the Australian Vaccination Skeptics Network likes to say in public, listen to this clip from Polly Tommy.
Because there's more and more and more babies being born that are not going to be vaccinated. Over our dead bodies, do you come near our babies with a needle of any kind?
Now, don't forget that Polly Tommy and Meryl Dorey were quite happy to sit side by side on the stage during a screening of VaXXed or during the Q&A. We will bring you any updates to this developing story.
QED 2017 is fast approaching, and you don't want to miss it. In the past, QED has brought you the Arrows of Time, the origin of recording, an escape from the Westboro Baptists, the sex bias of sex science, and all manner of other science, pseudoscience, activism, slacktivism, and more. Plus, insects for breakfast. Yum. QED 2017 takes place on the 14th and 15th of October in Manchester, England. We've already announced speakers like Sophie Wilson, co-inventor of the ARM computer chip, Simon Singh, who will be showing how to crack a genuine Enigma machine, Phil Scraton talking through the real-life cover-up of the Hillsborough tragedy, and physicists Helen Chersky and Tim O'Brien. We'll have a live show from the Parapod Boys, and the whole event will be emceed by ace magician Dave Annick. Have some laughs, meet some new friends, make new connections, all for only £109, including all the main stage talks, panels, podcasts, workshops, our Saturday night entertainment, and lots more. Check out qedcom.org for details. We'll see you in October.
Here's Maynard's spooky action at a distance.
Yes, all the hustle and bustle of the Australian Museum during the Sydney Science Festival. We're here wandering around in our lab coats hoping to meet a few scientists or some people that are just getting all sciencey. We're in the main hall here where they have lots of people. We've got commercial people like 3M Australia. We've got various tertiary institutions here. UTS is here. ANSO here. They're the nuclear people. Just look over there, there's a whole bunch of kids having a lot of fun with the non-Newtonian fluid, which means that, Newton mucked around with it. Oh, no, he didn't. No, Newton wasn't allowed to play with that stuff. We're here at the Australian Mathematical Science Institute booth. Now, this is a bit of an issue with me because I've never been particularly good with maths. What's your favourite area of mathematics? Have you got your degree yet?
Yes, I have my PhD in maths, indeed.
Oh, wow. What did you do your thesis on?
I studied knot theory, so studying tying of knots, but in the fourth dimension.
So does that mean you had to rotate the third dimension by 90 degrees, or you're talking about time?
I'm talking about neither.
Oh, wow, okay.
It's another spatial dimension, and actually that's something we're looking at here, not the fourth dimension, but the second dimension. And how do you take something like the Earth, which is a three-dimensional object, and draw a two-dimensional map of it? So how do you go down a dimension?
This is fantastic. You're actually talking my language here. Now, I have read the book Flatland, which looks at this very point. So I imagine the way you do it is you would move the three-dimensional object through the two dimensions, and then it would get wider and smaller or something like that. Am I anywhere close to the answer?
That's certainly one way of doing it. It's not the way that we draw maps, so in terms of navigation of drawing maps, but that's certainly a way that you can go down a dimension by taking cross-sections of a shape.
So can you tell us what the answer was for you quickly or not?
For me, in terms of studying the fourth dimension, actually taking cross-sections is actually what we did.
Oh, okay.
So I don't know how detailed you would like me to go, but
I think that's enough for us at home to get into it. And what excited you about maths? Was it something from an early age where just numbers and the fact that they unlock reality was your thing? How did you get into it?
I didn't enjoy maths until I was in about year 11 or 12 at school, and I never enjoyed maths when I was younger because it was boring in school. It was doing calculations, it was here's a page of 20 quadratic formulas, solve them, and that didn't interest me. And it was going to university and seeing proofs and seeing that creative side of maths which really got me excited about the subject.
Look, have you ever worked in a shop? I bet you'd be really good at making change.
I have not worked in the shop.
Oh, okay. I thought, you'd be great. Oh, yeah, that's 75, that's 25 cents change. Because I was really crap at that when I worked for the railway. I just imagine you'd be good at that. Actually, can you do just stuff in your head really well? Do you ever need a calculator?
I do need a calculator, and I think that's another myth of mathematics, that to be good at maths you have to be fast at mental arithmetic, and it's not true. You talk to most people who have a PhD in maths and they're really awful at mental arithmetic. And I'm a geometer, I'm all about shapes and patterns, and I'm not good at numbers actually.
Right. So when you see a problem you see it in like knots, doing and undoing?
I see it in pictures. I cannot do maths until I draw a picture.
You're interested in some maths here, are you?
Oh yeah, I love maths. It's my favourite subject.
Cool. Hey, what's your favourite area of maths? Have you got a favourite type of problem you like to solve?
I like geometry.
Oh, cool. Well, I think you've come to the right person. Enjoy your time here. Wow. Gee, that girl was excited about geometry, wasn't she, Richard?
And origami.
Oh, that's
yes. With all the maps they have there, you can fold all those shapes to make different globes of the world. It's great.
Okay. I seem to remember there's some mathematical computer equation called a smooth noodle map as well. I'm sure saying that there's people out there going, yeah, he mentioned smooth noodle maps, which is also the name of a Devo album.
I think I had that for dinner last night.
Absolutely.
Who have we got here and where are you from?
This is Jenolan Caves, and we're about 3.5 hours west of Sydney. And we're here because we're actually promoting a lot of the good science that we're doing out there. Oh. So I'm a guide, and I'm actually a paleontologist out there as well. So we're going to see what we find.
Now, I know my difference between a stalagmite and a stalactite, but that's where it ends for me.
Okay, well, there's more to it than that.
I'm sure there is. So what are you showing people here? You've got some rocks, and it looks like there's some... Is that a crystal formation of some sort?
Absolutely. We brought some of our limestone rock, and the limestone is particularly exciting stuff because limestone's formed from the remains of living creatures. So the limestone is what the crystal comes from, so chemically they're almost the same thing.
So does limestone eventually turn into oil?
No.
Oh, okay.
No, limestone turns into beautiful cave crystal. And it's a chemical thing that can happen over many, many millions of years. Our limestone here is actually what's left of a vast belt of a shallow sea that was up in western New South Wales, central New South Wales. In this case, over 400 million years ago. So what we've got are seashells and corals. Have a look. Okay, I know you can see that on a podcast.
I know. We're just having a look through. We're having a close look up here. I'm going to put my glasses on to make sure I get a really good look.
Yeah. Okay.
And so...
This is an ancient coral. Okay, an ancient coral.
And you said 4 million years, did you say?
430 million years ago. So when this was a shallow sea, dinosaurs weren't even going to appear for another 200 million years. When this was a shallow sea, life on land was just getting started, and most of the life was in the sea. You weren't going to get your birds or your mammals for many, many, many.
And there was certainly no walking fish, Mexican walking fish, not yet? They hadn't come out?
Not yet. You had early fishes, and these early fishes were fabulous because they had no fins, they had no jaws. Well, jaws fish were starting up at about the same time, but the world was, as far as backbone creatures, the world was a world of fishes. And most of the life was in the sea, so this was what you'd find all over the globe. Okay. So these are crinoids, and crinoids are fabulous, related to your starfish. And crinoids are actually still around today, but they're very, very ancient. And it's the mineral in the shells and the corals, in this case crinoids, that makes the mineral rock. So calcium carbonate shells, calcium carbonate rock, and then you get the calcium carbonate crystal. And the chemical reaction that will form that is when your rock can be dissolved away by acidic waters, happens naturally, and then the water enters caves, it ends up dripping into caves, and the extra carbon dioxide that makes it acidic evaporates. It escapes, the crystal forms, and it's beautiful stuff.
And what's the most exciting thing you've found there in your career at the Jenolan Cave so far? Have you found a rock you went, man, this rock is really unique? What have you found there that's excited you?
Well, I'm actually a vertebrate paleontologist, and I actually got most excited, at least up till now, by something somebody else had found, but it wasn't identified as what we had. So it's megafauna, Ice Age megafauna, and we thought for a long time, there was a diprotodon at Jenolan Caves, and that's the biggest marsupial that we know of. Fabulous animal.
Is it like a large wombat?
Yes. They're like big wombats, but they are not wombats. So they're called the giant wombats, but they weren't. There was actually a real giant wombat. But what I did was I actually went in and had a good look at it. That's me. And I re-identified it as a different animal. Okay? So you can see that I'm actually chipping through the rock to have a good look at the skull. It's stuck in the rock. And what it is instead is an animal called a Zygomaturus.
So is there a difference in the spine where you went, aha, or something like that?
Yes, there's one tooth. There's the killer tooth. If you get to what's called the premolar, and so I chipped away and there was the premolar, that is what is distinctive. So size said, shouldn't be a diprotodon. It's a bit too small. But when I found that killer tooth, that was when I said, yep, that's it. And that was really great because that means we can identify that animal, and that is what you'd expect to have been in Jenolan. Its nickname is the swamp cow, and it would have been mucking around in the waterways, maybe even in what's now the Blue Lake. And they were the animals we'd expect to have found only in the Ice Age, living with the Aboriginal people, died out maybe 30,000 years ago.
What have all the kids been asking? What's the thing that's been exciting them about your rocks here from the Jenolan Caves?
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, they love seeing fossils. I think it's just, if you ask a kid if they want to see something that got fossils in it, they'll go, yeah, right. Do you want to touch something that was alive 200 million years before the dinosaurs? Oh, yeah.
And where can we find you online before we go?
Okay, the JenolanCaves.org.au is our address, and there is a website, and that's got lots of interesting things on it. We're going to be developing special things for the schools coming up. We've got a new program that we're going to try to launch in about early 2018, and that'll include things on specifically science that's related to Jenolan, the minerals, the cave science, the paleontology, programs that are actually really relevant to what kids might be interested in, what the school curriculum at some point might be. That's a little ways down the line. And what New South Wales was all about in the past to the present. So we've got living, ecosystems, lots of endangered species, lots of stuff.
Cool. Thank you. Have a good day. Happy Science Week. Thank you.
You too. Thank you. Bye.
Yes, this room is just full of people that have done science. It's full of people that have been at university for more than the day that I was there. And I went on the day that everyone was on holidays. It was sharp. Look, I've just wandered past the Joint Academic Microbiology Seminars, or JAMS as they're known. If you're looking for your weaponised bird flu and you've got some money left in your Black Ops budget, are you the guys to come to?
We focus on lots of different types of microorganisms, not all bad. But yeah, we do work with pathogens and dangerous bacteria.
Oh, cool. Have you had the level 5 suit on and everything?
Some of my colleagues have, yep. So some of them are currently working on Ebola, wearing the full suits to protect them.
Well, what I find weird about Ebola is you've got the guy with the suit, then standing 20 feet away, there's someone with a clipboard and a short-sleeve shirt on. Yeah. That's always a bit weird.
Yeah, that's an administrative problem, but if you're actually handling the bacteria, then, some of those guys are working in some pretty tough conditions, but when you're actually handling the viruses, then you need that level of protection, yep.
All right.
And that protects the rest of us from getting sick from these diseases.
Yeah, now you've got down the front here a couple of... now, are you guys, you favour the bacteria, so you've got no time for the viruses. Where do you sit?
I work with bacteria, but a lot of my colleagues work with viruses as well, and microscopic higher organisms or eukaryotes. So we do everything, and fungi.
Now, what have you got down here? And you've been asking, have you got chlamydia here? That's because it's kind of a microbiology thing. It's like a small... It's not a virus, but it's a small bacteria. How does it work? Where does it sit in your front here?
So that's you're right. That's sort of halfway in its behaviour between a virus and a bacterium. And we don't have that one here, but we do have similar organisms.
Okay.
So what we've got is a whole suite here of different viruses, fungi and bacteria that do different things. Some are good and some are bad. So we have the good guys like yeast, which is a fungi that, of course, we use to make bread and beer.
Now, I'm looking at is that the chicken pox one, the spotted one?
Yeah.
Or is that smallpox? That's
measles. That's measles, but we do have the smallpox one as well. This is golden staph. So this is an antibiotic-resistant bacteria. So you can see that it's wearing a cape. So that's a super bug. So this is where a lot of research is focused on the moment in understanding how these bacteria become resistant to antibiotics and how we can prevent that happening, because that's a massive problem at the moment.
Yeah, well, what is the current method that most antibiotics kill the bacteria like that? Do they deny them food? Do they take something out of their DNA? How do they normally work? What's the mechanism?
There's a few different mechanisms. So classically, they interfered with the chemicals that make the cell wall or the structure of the bacteria by interfering the synthesis of those chemicals. But now there's a lot of types that interrupt different stages of what's called the metabolism of the cell. So that's how the cell goes from the instructions in its genome to actually performing functions via enzymes, and it blocks different stages. Different antibiotics work in different ways. Some target the genes that get switched on, some interfere with parts of the cell that are being made by like constructive parts of the cell, like the cell wall being synthesized.
Okay, now I see we've got some E. coli back there. That's pretty much everywhere. Poo is everywhere, isn't it?
Yep. So E. coli really is everywhere. It's sort of the model organism that we use in the lab. But it's also present in our bodies and in our guts, and it's also present in things like waterways. And then some are good and some are bad. So a lot of these species are very variable. So if it's in the right place doing the right thing, it's good for you, and it's part of our natural microflora. But also different strains can cause disease, particularly if they're coming from, say, feces into water, and then we're consuming them. So, yeah, these things are quite complicated, and different species do different things in different environments.
Now, would you encounter polio in the wild very normally here? Now, I know people might not be getting it as much in Australia, but does it turn up anywhere? Is it in our poo normally?
I believe largely it's been eradicated in Australia, but in other parts of the world it's not. But the actual organism that causes it potentially could exist at a low level.
Okay.
So there's a theory called the Bass-Becking hypothesis. That's a bit of a complicated
I'm loving that.
name.
No, say it again.
The Bass-Becking hypothesis.
So that's two people working on something by the sound of it.
That was his last name. But what it is the theory that everything is everywhere and the environment selects. So a lot of microorganisms occur everywhere on the planet at a really low abundance. And when the environment changes, they can become really abundant really quickly. So that's something to be aware of when we think of things like climate change and pollution and what that will cause in the environment and what bacteria might respond to that.
Okay. So where can we find the joint academic microbiology seminars online? A bit more about what you've been telling us.
You can find us online at jams.org.au. So what JAMS is we're a monthly meeting of minobiologists that meet in Sydney, and we welcome the public to come to that.
Would it do our head in if we haven't been to uni, but?
It tends to be academic, but we welcome everyone and we're happy to always have a chat and explain what we're doing.
Cool.
And so that's once a month on the last Tuesday of the month, and you can check out our website. We also do a lot of talks and events with the public as well. So,
what's the Twitter one there?
Our Twitter is at jams.org.au, so @ JAMSORGAU. And if you send us a tweet, we're always happy to get in touch and talk about microbiology.
Hello, of course, on the science floor here for the Sydney Festival of Science. Who have we got here and what are you showing the kids today?
Oh, my name's Olga. I'm from Wildlife Sydney Zoo, and we've just got some little stick insects there. We've got some young ones, some older ones, and a few different species too. You can see the ones that look like curled up leaves. They're actually spiny leaf insects. They're known as the Maclay's spectre. And they're not actually a leaf insect, surprisingly enough.
Oh, I was going to say, do you find them all over Australia or just on the East Coast?
Mainly on the East Coast, but we do have phasmids all over Australia, all different species. Okay. So we do have a little bit of selection, a few different ones for the kids to have a look at. The most popular ones, of course, are always the biggest.
Oh, okay.
Which in this case is the spiny leaf insect. You can see the heavy abdomen on the female.
Oh, yeah.
That's full of eggs.
Wow. And so how many eggs would she drop in one go?
She drops them one at a time.
Oh, okay.
She actually flicks them quite far away. And if you have a close look at the eggs, they have a little nodule on the end that's scented. It actually attracts ants, and the ants come over, pick up the egg, and carry it down into their nest because they think it's food.
Oh.
But they don't eat the egg.
And so when the young hatch out, do they eat the ants?
No, the young are also vegetarian, so they're all herbivores. They eat eucalyptus leaf. Oh, look at her. Wow. She's so cute. And they'll actually climb out. They look like ants when they're little. They'll climb out of the ant nest, climb all the way up the tree, and then they sort of slow down quite a lot. You can see how slow she is. The babies are actually quite fast.
Oh, I see.
So,
and now, does she? Are they solar powered? Like when it's warm, they're more active. When it's cold, they just go into a leaf and stay there?
That's a really good question. Just like reptiles, these guys are ectotherms, so they are cold-blooded, and they do rely on solar energy to help them move.
Wow, that's quite cool. And now, people are pretty happy to have stick insects on them and stuff like that. They probably wouldn't feel the same way about spiders. Why do you think people have got the arachnophobia where they don't necessarily feel bad about the stick insect?
To be honest, a lot of people do feel bad about the stick insects until we tell them that they're not able to bite them. So I think with spiders, a lot of it is just people don't understand that most spiders aren't willing to sacrifice their venom on a large animal.
Well, also spiders don't eat you.
Yeah, they don't eat us, and if you're not a threat to them, they don't feel the need to use their venom. So we did have a spiders exhibition here just a little while ago.
Hang on a minute. You're saying the movie Six-Legged Freaks is not true?
No. The six, are you talking about eight-legged freaks?
Oh, I see. I had the wrong insect.
Six-legged freaks are the insects, yeah.
that was a pretty dull movie. The eight-legged, yes.
I'm one of the four-legged freaks. Yeah. But we got the little six-legged freaks, and then we've got arachnids, of course, the eight-legged freaks.
Oh, okay. Look, this is great. Look, everyone's just lining up to have a good look there.
The kids love them. Anything that moves, and as long as it doesn't bite them, suddenly they're like, oh, I'm an animal wrangler. It really gives them a bit of a hands-on experience. I think it's a great way to bring nature into the classroom as well.
And look, and where can we find more of your nature online?
Ooh, online. We do have a website, Wildlife Sydney Zoo 27.Aug.2017.com.au, I believe.
Right.
Wow, you caught me off guard.
Oh, okay. And have a good day here with the kids.
No worries. Thank you so much. I hope you guys have a great time here at the Science Festival. See ya.
Thank you. Well, Richard, we've been wandering around here. Now, what have you seen? I've seen a few people. We've seen a stick insect. I've tried to get bird flu weaponised there unsuccessfully down with those scientists. What have you been up to?
I was just looking at the gene technology from jellyfish and tiny little creatures that swarm and multiply in a drop of water.
Hey, look, I love the post they've got at the University of Sydney there. They've got a big post that says, enjoy what you do and it'll work out. I couldn't agree more. The hardest bit is finding the thing to enjoy that pays, isn't that, Richard? That's a tough bit.
We're trying, Maynard. Oh, how we're trying.
Oh, I found it, but these days I just seem to be mucking around with you. Hello, Skeptic Zone Cub reporter Maynard here at a very tense moment in the Sydney Science Festival as we are waiting to do a couple of shows of Skeptics, investigators, mystery investigators. I always get that wrong, Richard, I'm in the show. Hello.
Folks, we're here about to perform for two groups of school students who will be performing all morning. And that munching sound you can hear is actually our breakfast, which happens to consist of a minty each.
Yes, I was up at 4 this morning, don't ask, and been going all day, and I completely forgot to have breakfast. So that good Australian tip for all you overseas listeners, if you can't have breakfast, have a minty, at least, and it cures any breath problem you have as well.
It does, and we're preparing, we've got our divining rods, the juggling balls, the tubs, and bending spoons.
Now, by the way, if speaking of spoons, see if you can find on YouTube, I Play the Spoons by Clive Dunn from Dad's Army. Yes, that's a song. I Play the Spoons. It's terrible, but you'll enjoy it.
All right, well, we better get ready. In about 10 minutes, the room's going to be packed. This theatre will be packed with big groups of high school students today.
Hey, hold the microphone and I will play a little bit of the wonders of science they'll be hearing.
This is Maynard's contribution to science, everybody. You often wondered, well, this is it.
Oh, that's a wonder. Wonder what I'm bloody doing. That noise you can hear is high school students filing in and doing what high school students do. That sort of noise.
Yeah, they're up from Seven Hills, which is not, it's the northwest.
Oh, okay.
So a lot of,
And this high school's from Seven Hills. So you're going to hear the screams of delight, hopefully, from the Year 7 students from Seven Hills High School.
We are the mystery investigators. We investigate the strange and the mysterious using the method of science. We are myself, Richard Saunders, and Maynard, everybody. Maynard. Now, Maynard is a radio star, a TV star. He appears in movies, and he's a bit of a goose, really. There he is. And my... Yes, very much. Yes. We're going to show them now.
Oh, yeah,
My name is Richard Saunders. I also get to appear on TV and movies and things like that. I did a show on Channel 7 some years ago, and I'm also an actor sometimes on Home and Away and other TV shows. And there I am playing a teacher of a high school. I think there are some people here who can sympathise with me there.
The show went very well, and then came the time for Richard to lie on the bed of nails. Will he survive? Will he live to put himself on the bed of nails another day? I hope so. Who's going to feed the cats? The microphone.
No, I haven't got the microphone. I'm going to show you, yes, you can actually lie down on the bed of nails, as long as you are extremely careful, do it slowly, and I won't put all my weight on, but we'll see how it works. And we'll see that it's not such a mystery after all.
There you go. Richard Saunders on the bed of tetanus.
What?
Don't worry. Yes, you must, if you have a bed of nails at home, be very careful when you're lying on it. And one thing you must never do is let anybody stand on you.
He's okay! Thank you, mate.
Wow. Richard has survived the bed of nails, and the children are frankly amazed in that kind of a way that children are sometimes.
I survived the bed of nails once again. So that's what happens when we do science, we investigate mysteries, we test things and retest things. We get to do amazing things like send probes to Mars, and maybe even somebody in this room will be the first human to travel to Mars. Who knows? I hope so. That would be great. But from the mystery investigators, thank you.
So that's a wrap for the mystery investigators for another year at the Sydney Festival of Science. There is the show, people. On Maynard.com.au. Welcome to Bunga Bunga.
39 episodes, 39 events, 39 cataclysms.
With a show that challenges the government, the God, and your very self. On today's show, you'll hear...
There are times, I must admit, that we all manage to get pretty grubby.
That thing over there... And Tim, what will we hear from you?
Well, we won't be talking about this.
You're a selfish, rude, arrogant...
On Maynard.com.au. Hey, you!
Thank you for listening to the Skeptic Zone. Coming up next week, more reports from Eran Segev as he travels around the world, heading for the European Skeptics Congress coming up in Poland, where I'm delighted to say he will be a speaker. If you want to attend that meeting, which is coming up in September, the 22nd to the 24th of September, you can find links in the show notes. And thank you to all those people who contribute to the Skeptic Zone. I often say this, and I really mean it. If it wasn't for people chipping in, contributing weekly or sometimes donations, there would be no Skeptic Zone. So all you people who listen for free without chipping in, that's, I'm glad you're listening. I'm delighted. Thank you very much for listening, and I hope you enjoy the show. But for all those people who do contribute, even if it's $1 a week by Patreon or $2 a week by Patreon or $4 or whatever the case may be, or even micropayments, then a special thank you for you. It's you who make the show possible for everybody else. But for everybody who listens, I hope the show keeps you entertained, informed, and in a very real sense, I hope we are good company for you. I'm looking forward to next week. Maynard and I are off to a high school here in Sydney to perform our Mystery Investigator show once again. Should be a lot of fun. Oh, and don't forget to check out Maynard's podcasts at maynard.com.au. But for this week, this is Richard Saunders signing off from Sydney, Australia. You've been listening to the Skeptic Zone podcast. Visit our website at www.skepticzone.tv for contacts, an archive of all episodes since 2008, and our online store. Please support the Skeptic Zone by following us on Twitter @SkepticZone, liking us on Facebook, and leaving a review on iTunes. You can also show your support by subscribing via PayPal for as little as 99 cents a week. The Skeptic Zone is an independent production. The views and opinions expressed on the Skeptic Zone are not necessarily those of Australian Skeptics Inc. or any other skeptical organisation. What is it, Maud? What is it? Okay. There you go. You get a scratch on the tummy. You like that? What is it? What is it? Where's your sister? Hmm?
Oh,